She found a notebook on a train. She shouldn't have opened it. She says that herself up front. I shouldn't have opened it, but she did. She didn't hand it in at the station. She didn't leave it on the seat. She took it home, and she never told anyone why until now. And what she did next is the reason why we're here. We will call our confessor May, because her actual username looked more like coordinates to a government facility, which I can't read. May is 29 years old. Every weekday, she takes the same train into the city. Same route, same carriage, same seat whenever she can get it. You know how commuters work? After enough time, strangers become familiar. You don't know their names, neither do you know their jaws, but you know who gets off at which stop. You know who always has headphones on, or the person who eats tuna on public transport, despite society's repeated request not to. And that's how May noticed him. Tall, dark coat, always somewhere nearby. He doesn't scroll, doesn't stare at his phone. He's just present. In the way some people are present and makes them invisible even when they are doing nothing. For months, they existed in that strange commuter relationship where you recognize somebody every day but never actually speak to them. Then one Wednesday morning, his seat was empty, and sitting on it was a notebook. Small, dark cover, the kind that looks like it contains either profound thoughts or dark records. May says she ignored it for several stops, looked around, waited for somebody to come back for it. Nobody did. Eventually, she picked it up. Her plan was simple: find a name, hand it in, go to work. Instead, she opened it and found herself. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with the notebook in front of her. She didn't open it immediately. She just looked at it. Small enough to fit in a coat pocket, which meant he had been carrying it every day on the same train while she was reading her book 3 rows away. She would like to tell you she was frightened. That would make a very clean story. But mostly, she was curious and a little bit embarrassed. Not because of what he had done, because of how specific it was. There's a particular kind of exposure in finding out someone has noticed the things you thought were invisible. She opened the notebook again. This time, she went back to the beginning and she read it slowly. The way you read something you are trying to remember exactly. The easy version of this story is simple. Man watches woman on train, writes about her. This is terrifying. That version isn't wrong, but it isn't the whole story. She said the first entry wasn't about her appearance. It was about the way she turned pages. She never used the corner, always the center of the edge, and she was trying not to damage the book. The second entry was about the Tuesday morning she had laughed at something on her phone and then immediately looked around to see if anyone had noticed. Nobody had, or so she thought. Another entry described a morning she had spent 40 minutes staring out the window. No book, no music, just the window. The note underneath read, "Something hurt her today." The next entry was a dated Thursday in October. She had been early that morning, first time he had ever seen her early. She had sat down, opened her book, and then closed it again without reading a single page. She just held it. The note underneath said, "She's carrying something today. She doesn't want to put it down long enough to read." There was one from a Friday in November. He had written about her umbrella. Apparently, she checked it 3 times before getting off at her stop. Pocket, bag, under the seat, every single time without fail. He had found this interesting enough to document across 4 separate entries. She didn't know she did that. She genuinely didn't know. There was one from the week before Christmas. A morning the train was delayed and everyone was irritable and loud. He had written, everyone else got louder, she got quieter. She pressed herself against the window and found a patch of sky between the buildings and looked at it until the train moved. I don't think she noticed she was doing it. And then near the end of the notebook, one entry without a date, just 2 lines. She said goodbye to the carry when she got off today. She didn't say it out loud, but she did it. May sat at the kitchen table and realized she did say goodbye to the carriage every morning. A small note to nobody in particular. A habit so automatic, she had stopped registering it years ago. He had noticed. He had written it down. He had kept it. She read it twice, then a third time, then sat with it until the kitchen went dark. Here is the question the comment section could not agree on. At what point does paying close attention become something darker? Because the notebook wasn't threatening, but it also wasn't inviting. She hadn't consented to being observed in that detail. She hadn't known she was being observed at all. The following Wednesday, there was a new notebook on her seat. This one wasn't left by accident. Now, if you are a normal person, this is where you live. If you are a book talk girl, this is where you are kicking your feet and opening Pinterest. Two very different reactions. Let's continue. She opened it on the train. First page, he had written, I know I should have introduced myself. I kept deciding to and then deciding not to. I think I was afraid that once I spoke, I would just be a person. And a person can disappoint you. But a person on the train who never speaks is just a possibility. I was keeping myself as a possibility. That was selfish. I'm sorry. Ooh. She sat with that for a long time because there's something in that explanation. I was keeping myself as a possibility. That is either one of the most romantic things a person has ever said or one of the most concerning. And the comment section spent approximately 3 days arguing about which. She read it all the way to the end and missed her stop. Wrote all the way to the end of the line. They exchanged notebooks for 6 weeks. She will leave one for him, he will leave one for her. Responses, reflections, questions asked and answered in writing, on a train, without ever speaking. She told him things she hadn't told people she had known for years. He told her things. She said, like someone emptying out a room they had kept locked for a long time. She said she felt known, not the way you feel known by someone watching, the way you feel known by someone who paid attention when you were performing. She shared some of what she wrote back, not all of it, just a few lines. She wrote about why she always chose the center of the edge when she turned pages. She had borrowed a library book when she was 8, dog-eared a page. The librarian had given her a look she had never recovered from. He wrote back, I've been watching you protect books for 4 months. I thought it was a personality trait. It was a librarian. She wrote about the day she stared out the window for 40 minutes. It had been the anniversary of something she didn't want to disclose. Every year on that day, she let herself feel it on the way in and put it away by the time she arrived. The train was the only place she gave herself 40 minutes to just be in it. He didn't write a response to that one. He left a pressed flower between the pages instead. Small, slightly impractical, possibly from a station planter box. She didn't ask, she kept it. By week 5, something had shifted. The notebooks were getting longer, and the gaps between entries were getting shorter. She started waking up earlier on Wednesdays, not consciously, just waking up. Week 5's notebook had one line on the last page. After everything else, after all the responses and reflections and questions, just one line. I don't know how to move from this to that. She read it on the platform, standing in her usual spot, looking at his coat through the window. He was already seated, already looking forward. She folded the page carefully, put it in her pocket, got on the train, sat in her usual seat, and wrote back 3 ways. Figure it out. Oh, getting interesting. She left it on her seat when she got off, didn't look back, went to work, and waited. The comment section had 2 camps on this. Camp 1, this is the most romantic thing I've ever had. Camp 2, this is the most dangerous thing I've ever had. Camp 1 said, the notebooks created intimacy without performance. Camp 2 says she has no idea who this person actually is. Both camps were right. And that's exactly why the story gets complicated. By week 6, she bothered to find not a notebook, a coffee, on her seat. From the coffee shop at the station she always walked past, but never went into because the queue was always too long. With a note that said, "I know you never go in. I went in. I thought you might want to know what you've been missing." She picked up the coffee and sat down across from him for the first time and said, "It's good coffee." He replied, "I know." And then neither of them spoke for the rest of the journey, because some doors don't need his speech. They just need someone to walk through them. They sat in silence for 11 minutes. She said she counted, not anxiously, just aware of time in a way she hadn't been before. When the train pulled into her stop, she stood up. He also stood up. First time he had ever got off at her stop. On the platform, she said, "You got off at the wrong stop?" And he replied, "I know." "You'll have to get the next train back?" "I know." They stood on the platform for a while. Cold morning, other commuters moving around them like water around two stones. Then he said, "I know you say goodbye to the carriage." She replied, "I'm aware you know. I like that you do it." She looked at him for a moment, the first time she properly looked, not a glance, not a commuter's peripheral awareness, an actual look. Then she said, "You are going to be late," and walked to work. He got the next train back. She knows because he wrote about it that same afternoon. Left the notebook on her seat the following Wednesday. The entry said, "The platform was cold. You were warmer than expected, and I'm going to be thinking about that for a while." She read it 3 times on the way in, missed her stop again. His name was Oliver, and he was a writer, which is either the most obvious possible answer or the perfect one, depending on who you are. She said when he finally told her his name, it felt like the least important thing she'd learned about him, which is unusual. Names are usually the first thing. With him, they were almost the last. They've been together for a year. She said he still notices things she doesn't notice about herself. And that some days, that's the most comforting thing in the world. And some days, it's the strangest. And she's decided she can live inside that strangeness. Because most love has a strangeness at the center of it, if you look closely enough. Okay, girlies, I see you. I know what you want to say. Dark coat, brooding observer, notebooks. You notice the way she turned her pages. I know, I understand the appeal, and I'm not here to take it from you. Here's what sometimes gets missed. May had agency at every step. She found the notebook. She chose to keep it. She left the note. She chose what it said. She sat down across from him. She chose the moment. She was never acted upon. She was always acting. The version of this story where she was afraid and said nothing and he continued regardless, that's a different story. That's not a love story. What made this one a love story, if it is one, is that she met him in it. Chose to. Eyes open. That distinction matters. It always matters. Even in the dark romance. Especially in the dark romance. May ended the confession with the first line from the first notebook he had left. She memorized it. She said, he wrote, "I don't know your name, but I know you mouth the words when you read something that matters. And I think that's the more honest than most things people show me on purpose." I've thought about that line more than I expected to. The idea that the things we do without thinking, the things we did if we knew we were being watched, might be the truest things about us. I don't know if Oliver is a romantic or a warning. Maybe he's both. Maybe the line between those things is just whether the person being watched decides to stay. If this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribe. And if it stay with you even a little bit, the like button is right there. I'll see you in the next confession. Bye.